Hello, and welcome to this week's episode of the Wealth Conversation podcast with me, Tsitsi Mutiti. I guide high-achieving women on their journey to build lasting wealth so they can prepare for an abundant future in every area of their life. I hope that today's episode will help you to transform your relationship with money so you can make the choices that will enable you to create the opportunities and lasting wealth that you desire. Let's get straight into this week's episode. In this episode, I'll be taking you through each step of the Choices Blueprint. This is the method that continues to help me and my clients create a solid foundation on which to build wealth in every single area of our lives. As you may know by now, I strongly believe that wealth encompasses so much more than just financial well-being. But it also includes our physical, mental, spiritual, and social well-being. I call these 5 areas the wealth cornerstones, and I'll definitely be doing an episode focusing on each of these areas in the coming weeks, so stay tuned for that. For this episode, I want to focus on the Choices Blueprint, and I thought we should start with the word choices. What does that word mean? When I looked up the word choices, my iPad came up with the following. Choices means the act of selecting between 2 or more possibilities. And I couldn't agree more with that definition. You see, we each have multiple possibilities and paths that we can take at any given moment. And it is really up to us to choose between the many possibilities. Sometimes the options are so many that we actually can't make that choice, or we are so afraid of the consequences of making the wrong choice that we just don't choose. And other times we go with the feeling and hope it is the right one. The Choices Blueprint is the method that has helped me reduce the possibility of making the wrong choice in any given situation. Now, I'm not saying I'm perfect. What I am saying is that I've found a way to reduce things going wrong in certain situations. So here we go. Each letter in the word choices represents a step. There are 7 letters and therefore 7 steps. Step 1 is clarity. That's the first C in choices. Get clarity on where you are now and where you really want to be. It is super important that you are very clear about where you want to be in every area of your life. And that requires you to accept the calling on your life that you are destined to fulfill. Because when you have clarity, I find that you are able to move so much quicker, as you have less hesitation when taking the steps that you know will get you closer to the result or the place that you desire. When I work with a coaching client, the first thing I ask them is, what are you hoping to achieve at the end of this program? I do my best to get them to dig deep so they can articulate where they are now and where they want to be. Why achieving that goal is important to them, and who besides themselves will benefit if they reach this result. I liken this stage to when you're planning a trip. The first thing you tend to do when planning a trip is decide where exactly you want to go. You then work out the various ways that you can get to that destination from where you are at present. For some journeys, you may need assistance from a travel agent or a tour guide. That's what clarity is all about. It's about understanding where you really want to go, looking back to acknowledge where you are now, and then identifying the steps that will take you closer to where you want to be. This is the exact same framework that you should use when you set your goals and intentions for your physical, your mental, spiritual, social, and financial well-being. I also want to highlight that whilst it is good to focus on the big goals, it is actually more important to focus on the small goals. Because more often than not, by achieving the seemingly small goals, we are able to arrive at the big goals much quicker. So, that's clarity. Step number 2 is habits. This is the second step in the Choices Blueprint. And this step focuses on understanding your money habits and mindset. Now, this is a huge topic, and I will be covering this in future episodes, and I have some phenomenal guests lined up to talk specifically about money habits and mindset. But what I want you to understand is that this step is all about getting to know and understand you, the real you. What are the things you find yourself doing automatically without even thinking? It's almost like you're on autopilot. For example, locking the front door when you're leaving home. How many times have you wondered whether you have locked the door after leaving home, only to realize that you had actually locked the door, but you can't remember doing that? Or when you hear a particular song or smell, a fragrance, which transports you to a certain time and place in your life that you remember so vividly. What are the emotions that automatically come up for you? How do you react? Understanding some of these triggers and habits is vital to understanding why you make some financial decisions. Some of these will be beneficial and others will have a negative impact. Our habits are a set of decisions and actions that we take based on a deep-seated set of rules. Our memories and our thoughts that are etched in our subconscious memory are the foundation of these habits. Taking the time to actually understand and acknowledge these rules or mindset and identifying how they trigger your habits is key to understanding you. Your mindset is developed when you are very young. Psychologists actually say that between the ages of 0 to 7, our brains operate like sponges, taking in everything we hear, see, and feel, without really rationalizing those things. As we get older, those memories and feelings are what our brain uses to make decisions and to make certain actions. And this shows up in how we are spending or not spending our money, how we behave in particular settings and situations, and whether we can actually achieve our goals and intentions. So it is important to understand the foundation of your mindset because your thoughts and beliefs form the foundation of your habits, and your habits have a direct impact on each area of your life. Step number 3 is O for overcome. Overcome limiting beliefs. This step is closely linked to step number 2, understanding your money habits and mindset. Limiting beliefs, just like our mindset, are developed in our younger years by what we heard the older people around us say, the things we saw people do or not do. We gave a meaning to everything that was happening around us, whether we understood what was happening or not, and these meanings have stayed with us. So what do you remember people saying about money when you were growing up? Some of the sayings I heard were, money doesn't grow on trees, more money, more problems, money is the root of all evil. As I continue on the journey to creating the wealth I desire, I am constantly asking myself, do these beliefs still apply today? What is the belief I'm holding? And what is the benefit of holding this belief? Another belief that influenced my relationship with money, my habits and behavior in other areas in my life, was the belief that people like me do not deserve good things. You see, I grew up in a middle-class family in Zimbabwe. My parents raised me to believe that I could be anything I wanted to be. But all that changed when I was 17. That was when my mother passed away. My father had passed away 5 years before her. I didn't know at the time, But that was when many of the fears that I didn't even know I had started showing up in my actions. That is when I started to believe that people like me don't deserve good things. I'm the eldest of 4 girls, and so I took on the role of becoming the head of the household after my mother's passing. And as the years went by, the Zimbabwean economy went into freefall, and the national currency soon became worthless. Yet again, another confirmation to my subconscious mind that people like me don't deserve good things. When anything good happened to me, it would be taken away. It was not long before these beliefs started to show up in the way I dealt with my money, the way I dealt with relationships, and the way I dealt with success and even compliments. When it came to money, I found it easy to literally give money without expecting it back. Because if I had money, it meant I could do good things for myself. But deep down, I believed that I did not deserve good things. So the best thing to do was to get rid of the thing that could help me get those good things. That way, I wouldn't have to experience them being taken from me. Just like my parents were taken away from me, and just like the value of the money I'd been working so hard for was taken away from me. This belief was one of the reasons why I ended up in debt. So you see how I gave meaning to what was happening around me several years ago. And by not working through the foundations of those beliefs, I limited my progress in several areas of my life. What are the limiting beliefs that you have carried throughout the years? How are they impacting your ability to create the wealth and the lifestyle you desire? When you are able to identify your limiting beliefs, you can start working on being more aware of the behaviors or habits that show up when these beliefs are triggered. Step number 4 in the choices blueprint is identify. Identify your wealth values and intentions. This is closely linked with step number 1, but the difference here is that we are not just looking at the big picture. In this step, we are looking at the reasons behind wanting to reach that intention. When your intentions are in alignment with your values, it becomes much easier for you to do the work to achieve them. Acknowledging your wealth values is so important and something that many don't think about when they're working towards a financial intention. This step is very personal and is all about you. But to be able to identify your values and intentions, no matter how wild they may seem to begin with, you have to have worked through some of the limiting beliefs that might block you from believing in your ability to achieve your intentions. One of my values is giving, partly rooted in what I experienced growing up from losing my parents, but also because I've always wanted to ensure that people around me are able to live the life that they desire. I used to give a lot in terms of my time, my money, my energy, to the point where when it came to money, I ended up in debt because I hadn't considered my needs first. I soon realized that by overgiving, I was reducing my ability to build wealth and at the same time not allowing people to grow. After identifying my values and linking them to my mindset and habits, I recognized that giving was actually one of my core values, and it still is. But I needed to figure out how to give to myself as well. At that point in my life, my wealth intentions were to have a comfortable home, to have at least 6 months worth of my living expenses in savings, to be able to spend money and not have to worry about going into my overdraft, and to set a foundation on which to pass on wealth to my daughter. For me to do that, I had to give to myself as well. After all, it is better to give from a cup that is overflowing than a cup that is half full. It's really important to take the time to identify your wealth values and intentions. and to be brutally honest with yourself. The more open and honest you are with yourself, the easier it will be for you to move to the next step, which is step number 5, commit. Commit to becoming the designer of your financial future. There is not much for me to say about this step, because if you have gone through steps 1 to 4, then step 5 is really about having the confidence to stand in your power and commit to creating the lifestyle and future that you desire. It's about saying, this is who I am, this is what I value, and these are my intentions, and then get to work. You may need some help along the way. You may have to sacrifice a few things along the way. But when you are super clear about your end goal, it becomes much easier to make those decisions. Once we have committed, the next step, step 6, is evaluate. This is the E in the choices blueprint. Evaluate whether your money is working as hard as you do. Now, you will notice that from steps 1 to 5, I haven't really spoken about the numbers. How much is in your bank account? What are your expenses? Step 6 is where we focus on all of this. When I felt like I was drowning in debt and wouldn't open any letters from the creditors that would come through the post, I would just pile them in a box in the corner. I was hiding from the numbers. Now, not everyone who doesn't open their mail is dealing with seemingly unmanageable debt. Some of you don't open letters from your pension providers, so you don't even know how much money you actually have saved for retirement. When you know your numbers, it becomes clear as to which step or steps to take first. You are able to identify where you need help. You can focus your efforts on one area and one step at a time, whilst understanding how each area of your life will be impacted. Not knowing my numbers not only impacted my financial well-being, but my physical, mental, spiritual, and mental well-being. You see, I appeared happy on the outside, but inside I was literally suffocating. By committing to taking control of the situation and opening every letter in that box in the corner, the first thing I realized was the situation was not as bad as I had thought. I also realized that I was not making my money work as hard as I was, and that a large proportion of my money was not being spent in alignment with my values and wealth intentions. That was a major turning point for me in my wealth creation journey. When was the last time you assessed whether your money is working as hard as you do? The last step in the choices blueprint is secure. Step number 7. Secure the financial future you desire. If your money is now working as hard as you do, the next step is protecting the wealth you already have, not just for yourself, but for the next generation as well. For this step, I encourage you to have conversations with qualified professionals who can assist you to ensure that you and your loved ones and your wealth are protected if the unexpected were to happen. You are not having to drain your savings or borrow money from elsewhere. These actions may help you to deal with the situation quickly, but they may have a lasting negative impact on your ability to build the wealth that you desire. So there you have it. That is a breakdown of the choices blueprint. In the coming episodes, I will be going even deeper into each of the 7 steps. Thank you for listening to this week's episode. Connect with me at The Wealth Conversation on Facebook and Instagram so we can continue the discussion. Also, if you're ready to define what wealth truly means to you, then go to thewealthconversation.com and download the Wealth Cornerstones Guide. Until next week, stay focused on becoming the designer of your financial future.